How's it going, everybody? Too Spooky here. Now, a couple of weeks ago, I told you guys I would be putting this video out after the previous top 10, which was the top 10 Zoan Devil Fruits video. After that video hit 3,500 likes. Well, we hit 2,500 in only 2 days. And then we hit 3,500 within the first week. And I just wanted to thank you guys all for being amazing and for all of those likes. It really shows me that you guys want to see these videos. The next top 10 after this one will be the top 10 worst devil fruits in One Piece. And that list will include all 3 categories of devil fruits, by the way. So that means Paramecia, Logia, and Zoan. That video will be coming as soon as this video hits 4,000 likes. So make sure to like it up for the next top 10. Anyways guys, today we are going to be counting down the top 10 Paramecia devil fruits in One Piece. Now I'm sure, as most of you know, before we get into the list, there are a few things you should keep in mind. The first is that my pronunciation is utterly god-awful, so I will likely mispronounce some names or phrases. The second thing is that this list is not based specifically on strength or power, though strength does have a little bit to do with some of them. We are also going to be looking at the overall ability or abilities of the devil fruit, how unique it is, and how useful it is or can be overall. And in addition to this, we are not only focusing on the devil fruits, but also the devil fruit's user, because as all of you know, the user of the devil fruit plays a very important role in how the fruit is used and the powers that come along with it. So keep that in mind as well. And the final thing is that there are a lot more Paramecia devil fruits compared to the other 2 categories. So there will more than likely be a lot of people you expected to see on this list who just didn't make the cut. This list was very hard to narrow down, but I feel like the majority of you will be happy with the results. So I'm sorry to anyone who didn't make the list. Now, we're quickly going to go over the devil fruit weaknesses. So the user of the devil fruit cannot swim after consuming a devil fruit and will drown. They also fall into a very weakened state while in seawater. Sea Prism Stone has the same effects on a devil fruit user as seawater and will weaken them and cancel out their devil fruit's powers. Some devil fruits have a natural weakness such as fire, being weak to water. Also, some devil fruits, specifically the Logia, are very susceptible to hockey attacks. And now that you know the weaknesses, grab an apple, take a bite, and let's get right into the list. Number 10. The Bari Bari no Mi, otherwise known as the Barrier fruit. This devil fruit was consumed by Bartolomeo. The main ability of this fruit is that it allows Bartolomeo to form invisible barriers, though they can be solidified to become visibly transparent, resembling sort of a pane of glass. This barrier will protect the user from attacks from front, back, sides, and even from above and below. The barriers are strong enough to defend against even a fishman's punch that can shatter 4,000 tiles. And this barrier in turn injured that fishman's hand. Even the shockwave produced from Elisabello II's punch, which could supposedly take down an entire fortress, could not breach the barrier, nor the area behind it, or for that matter even leave a mark on these barriers. Bartolomeo has a high estimation of these barriers' strengths, saying with confidence that they are unbreakable. The barriers can also be used for offensive purposes by launching it forward to create powerful forces to strike the targets, or to deflect forces sent by enemies right back at them. According to Bartolomeo, he creates these barriers by crossing his fingers. Another strength of this fruit is that Bartolomeo can form different shapes out of his barriers, such as stairs which people can stand on, making this fruit useful for getting to hard-to-reach places. It is currently unknown if the barriers have a damage limit, and Bartolomeo has stated that the barriers are not soundproof. A notable limitation is that he can only produce 1 barrier at a time, and there is a maximum total surface area of barriers that Bartolomeo can produce at once. Examples of this weakness are being unable to completely block Pika's giant stone fist, as well as being incapable of producing more barriers after crafting a staircase out of them. And yet another weakness is that he cannot use his hands for basically anything else while he's crossing his fingers to create the barrier. Now, you must remember, it takes a lot to make this list in general, considering the sheer amount of Paramecia users and their abilities. So don't judge Bartolomeo being at the bottom of this list as a bad thing by any means. But let me explain why he is at the bottom. So at first glance, the Bari no Mi is almost exclusively a defensive fruit, and it probably is the strongest defensive ability throughout all of One Piece currently. Throughout its time in Dressrosa, there was not even one occurrence of the barrier being damaged in any way. However, the limited size of the barriers are a downfall for larger size attacks. But I am saying that these attacks need to be huge to get past this barrier. Because like we stated earlier, these barriers can withstand a punch that is said to eliminate entire fortresses, and these barriers didn't even receive a scratch from that. And on top of that directly, behind the barrier was also undamaged. Now, defensive capabilities alone would not be enough to make this list, even if they are the strongest defense in One Piece, like these barriers are. The reason Bartolomeo makes the list is because he found ways to turn this defensive ability into an impressive offense as well. Let's go over exactly what I mean by that. So for starters, Bartolomeo can pin people against a wall, for instance, and literally use his barrier to squish them to death. If he wanted to, I mean. He has also used his barriers to propel into people at high speeds, which I imagine would feel like getting hit by a car. And he also used them to form a ball around his fist, which can be used to hit people as a form of invisible boxing glove. Like, if he can do all this, imagine what other things he could do, such as using his barriers to create other weapons? If he can create stairs, I'm sure he could create some sort of sword or something. Overall, Bartolomeo makes the list for having the best defense in the world, aside from oversized attacks like Pika's fist. And he has one hell of an offense when it comes to still maintaining an impenetrable defense. Because of all this, Bartolomeo comes in at number 10. Number 9. The Hana no Mi, otherwise known as the Flower Fruit. This devil fruit was consumed by Nico Robin. This fruit has the ability to sprout multiple body parts on any surface, including the user's own body. The only exception being Sea Stone. With this ability, the user can take on many attackers at once by using many different sprouted limbs. Since the user is practically the only one who knows where the limbs will sprout out, they have the element of surprise on their side as well, meaning that unless an opponent is incapable of being held, such as a Logia Devil Fruit user, any opponent that faces the user is practically defenseless against them, making this fruit one of the most powerful in the Paramecia class. She can also render almost any foe into submission with ease, even those with superhuman speed like Hakuba. Also, the fruit's powers are capable of affecting many foes simultaneously, giving great offensive capabilities. The fruit's powers are also formidable for defense, such as when Robin was able to render the Alabasta forces reluctant to enter the royal tombs simply by covering the entrance in arms and tried to grab them as they neared. The fruit's powers can also be used to get intelligence without being noticed by sprouting an eye or an ear in an unseen location. Robin's duplication ability is able to sprout up to 1,000 body parts at once, which have been seen to form together into gigantic limbs. She has also gained the ability to create a full-body clone of herself. The user of the Hana no Mi also has unique weaknesses as well, like the user will gain damage to their body if the extra limbs are attacked, and can feel the pain on each one of them. This disadvantage also extends to other devil fruits, because if her limbs are affected, then the host's body is affected as well, demonstrated when Sugar touched her limbs with the Hobi powers, turning her real body into a toy. The user cannot create limbs where there is not enough room, and while each part is capable of the part's normal movements, the body part itself is bound to where it sprouted from. The strength of the user is also still limited to their individual strength, meaning that the individual strength in the replicating appendages is no different to that of Robin's actual corresponding limbs. This fruit's defensive strategy is to attack from afar and use their superior range to overwhelm the foe. However, when in close range, the user is vulnerable as the fruit lacks serious defensive abilities. During an ambush, for instance, the user has few options to block the attack. See, Robin was bound to be on this list regardless. But I could only place her so high because of her weakness. But before we get to that, let's recap her strengths. Robin can sprout any limb or any body part onto any surface except for sea stone. Wait, you mean any body part? Yeah, any body part. Which means as long as she can see you, you are not safe. She can also clone herself and use her sprouted limbs to create giant limbs by fusing them together. She can also do other cool things like create a web of hands or fingers, create wings to fly, and even place her eyes or ears in an unseen location to collect intel from the enemy without being noticed. And with all these limbs in general, she can take down or restrain almost any foe. This ability is a very strong one and should never be taken lightly. Now, with all this strength, how can she still be so low? Well, the first thing I noticed is that any of these limbs can be damaged, which will in turn hurt Robin. All it would take is one sword slash to a random arm she sprouted to stop Robin indefinitely, because she can feel all the pain from these limbs. It would make her extra cautious to where she manifests them, making her overall attack power more limited. However, I feel if Robin were able to use Haki, this weakness could be bypassed. All she would need to do is harden her arms. Though if she had to harden multiple arms at once, this could prove to be more difficult in the end. Also with Haki, she would be able to grab Logia users, which would exclude yet another weakness. So bottom line, I want to be able to place Nico Robin higher on this list, but with some of the other people on the list, it just isn't possible. At least not yet. When and if Robin gets Haki, we can assume she would be higher than this. But until then, Robin flies in at number 9. Number 8. The Gomu Gomu no Mi, otherwise known as the Gum Gum Fruit. This devil fruit was consumed by Monkey D. Luffy. This fruit allows the user's body to stretch like rubber even when the user himself is nullified. It also makes them almost entirely immune to blunt attacks, including hand-to-hand combat, bullets, or even cannonballs, an ability which can be further reinforced with the application of Haki. Thanks to Luffy's own creativity both in and out of combat, this fruit has consistently proven itself to be among the most formidable, versatile, and unpredictable within the Paramecia class. The user's rubber-like body also allows the user to survive falls from heights and collisions that would kill a normal person. The user's ability to stretch and twist like rubber to extreme lengths not only makes him immune to injuries that originate from these movements, but it also allows him to even rebound, which can give him a great advantage in or out of battle. Stretching also allows the user to drastically increase the range of what would otherwise be considered a powerful close-range attack, turning it into a devastating mid-ranged or long-range attack as well. A stretched limb can also be used to store potential energy like a stretched spring, increasing the velocity by stretching his arm back, resulting in increased power. When combined with Haki, this power is increased even more. The user is also immune to electrical attacks and is also able to hit an electric Logia user without Haki. Additionally, the user is immune to the electricity produced by Electro. By training his abilities, Luffy has found unexpected ways to increase and strengthen his fighting ability, such as the ability to stretch his blood vessels wider to increase the speed of his blood flow in order to become faster and stronger, at a cost of depleting his body's energy at a faster rate. In addition to this, with the application of Haki, he is even capable of igniting a limb for an even more devastating attack. Luffy can even inflate his bones to increase the volume of his body and significantly increase his attacks. Despite all the great advantages Luffy gets by using his fruit, he can however still be hurt by cutting or stabbing attacks, as well as non-physical attacks such as ice or fire. One major risk of Luffy's powers is that he is vulnerable to attacks in the moments when his limbs are stretched to their limit. Luffy has also shown a limited ability of moving in midair by grabbing onto something with an extended limb and propelling away from what could have been a fatal attack. This gives Luffy the option of several jumping and mid-air attacks that would have been disadvantages to most other people, as it would have left them vulnerable. The Gomu Gomu no Mi user is also susceptible to Haki, similar to Water's effects. The usage of Haki only nullifies Luffy's ability to absorb blunt attacks. It does not, however, revert Luffy's body back to an unstretchable body. The powers of the fruit have been used by Luffy in a variety of ways. These range from simply moving from one place to another in a rather reckless manner, to attacking an enemy with a barrage of fast and strong punches. He has also developed several peculiar methods of combat as time passed, adapting new forms by manipulating his elastic body, most prominent his Gear 2nd and Gear 3rd forms, allowing him to momentarily increase his strength in combat. After the time skip, he has learned to use Haki in conjunction with the fruit's powers, as well as having more control over his forms. Later during the time skip, Luffy developed a form known as Gear 4th. Whew. I'm sure most of you are fully aware of Luffy's abilities, attacks, and defensive abilities, so I won't waste too much time, considering the fact he's the main character. But I must say, you wouldn't think being a Rubberman would be such a great ability. But Luffy time and time again proves us wrong and finds new and interesting ways to defeat his enemies. Another thing Luffy has that most other Devil Fruit users don't is his gear techniques. Now these are both a good thing and a bad thing. They're good because these abilities are very strong and useful, but bad because of how much they harm Luffy's body. Now Luffy has a great offense, a decent defense such as the Gum Gum Balloon and Haki abilities, and overall an unexpectedly useful fruit. Now not to spoil anything, but some people on this list, Luffy has defeated himself. With that being said, just because Luffy is lower doesn't mean he isn't stronger. He may or may not be. I'm looking at Luffy's fruit from a unique standpoint, a strength standpoint, and overall usefulness in general. And he has more than definitely outdid himself time and time again with his abilities. But in my eyes, some of these other fruits just have better, stronger, or even more useful abilities to me. And that is why Luffy can only be so high on this list. So I hope you guys understand why I put him here, and hopefully you'll soon see my point if you don't already. Anyways, Luffy stretches in at number 8.
Number 7.
The Doku Doku no Mi, otherwise known as the Venom-venom fruit. This devil fruit was consumed by Magellan. This fruit's major strength is that it grants the user the ability to produce and control various types of poison and venom. The types of poison they can produce may vary in many different strengths and forms, which can be as simple as breathing out minor poison gas, or as complex as being concentrated and corrosive indigo-colored liquid, produced directly out of their own body, having a body that is completely covered in poison at will. Any person who touches the user will be poisoned instantly. The fruit also grants the user immunity from poison as well. The user appears to have full control of any poison they release, whether it be in liquid or gas form. Fire has some neutralizing effect against the liquid poison the user produces. Another weakness is that while Magellan is immune to poison, if he consumes it, he gets diarrhea that usually has him confined to the bathroom for most of the day. Certain materials, such as Mr. 3's wax, are resistant to most of the poisons the user produces, although the special Kinjite poison the user can produce is so potent that it is able to bypass the wax and even through stone, meaning that it is rather acidic as well. Magellan can use the fruit's powers to attack by producing and manipulating poison from his body. Magellan can simply poison someone by breathing or using a complex move. To prevent his enemies from running away, or instead of running away, to trap them, Magellan can use his liquid poison to create a wall to block the exits of any place. Any object used to break Magellan's poison door simply goes into the poison, which absorbs and dissolves it. In battle, Magellan can coat himself in a liquid poison to serve as armor, preventing any opponent of easily landing any direct physical attack without getting poisoned in the process. Aside from lethal poison, Magellan can produce different types of poison that affects the user's sensory. He can also transfer his poison through his false horn boxing gloves, which can pierce or slash his targets and at the same time dissolve them completely. Magellan also has some pretty cool techniques up his sleeve, such as his Hydra, which is Magellan's signature technique. After producing vast amounts of liquid poison from his body, Magellan is able to manipulate it in the form of a three-headed dragon. It appears that he can even separate itself from Magellan to chase escaping victims. Alternatively, he would produce a dragon head of liquid poison from his arm, which could extend to attack a single opponent. With this creature, Magellan is able to engulf any opponent in deadly poison. The level of toxicity is so overwhelming that it actually causes the unfortunate victim to dissolve. The poison acts on the nervous system, paralyzing the victim and making them suffer excruciating pain until they die. This technique seems to be very infamous within the walls of Impel Down, as the prisoners all know and fear its name and properties. He can also spit his venom at high speeds towards enemies, which in return release a sort of tear gas. And his trump card is the Venom-demon. Magellan's ultimate attack. He produces an enormous amount of liquid poison which he calls Kinjit, and from it he forms into a massive, devil-like entity that copies his every movement. The color of this poison liquid is crimson colored and releases a very toxic smoke to go along with it. The poison made from Hell's Judgment is so toxic that it affects even non-organic objects, with the poison spreading like a disease over everything that makes contact with it, even if not directly, and seems to kill the afflicted victims right away once the infection spreads all the way throughout the body at a very fast rate. Magellan has claimed that this technique is potent enough to destroy all of Impel Down. My lord, Magellan is one powerful mofo. But before we get into this, I should clear up two things for you guys. The first is that Magellan is not a Logia Devil Fruit user. So stop saying that he is, because it's been proven he is 100% Paramecia. So get that in your head. The other is that it hasn't been confirmed if Magellan has awakened his Devil Fruit. We simply do not know. We can assume he did or didn't, but until we have concrete evidence or confirmation, we will remain with the ideology that he has not awoken his Devil Fruit. Anyways, with that out of the way, where do I start? Well, this guy is toxic. Literally. You can't hit him, you can't go near him, you can't even attack with ranged attacks. Magellan has attacks for every type of combat. He can spit his poison and use his Hydra for long-range attacks. He has his gas and other poison attacks for close range. And he can willingly choose to dissolve you into nothingness or simply knock you out with his vast amount of different poisons he has control of. The only known element that can even slightly stand a chance against him is fire, but even that just isn't enough to fend off this beast. And his final Venom-demon is a fucking monster. Even though we didn't get to see much of it, it can literally melt walls just by being activated. I don't even want to know what this thing could do if it pursued a full-on assault. Well, actually, I kinda do want to know. But the way I see it, this fruit has great defensive capabilities unlike any other. Even if they aren't as great as Bartolomeo, Magellan's defense abilities also have an offense in the fact that if anybody hits him, they are instantly poisoned in the process. And his offense is unmatched. He is strong enough to destroy all of Impel Down with everyone in it. And unless you're in possession of the Mera no Mi or the Magu no Mi, I see no chance of victory against this powerhouse.
But wait, too spooky. This is only number 7. How can anyone possibly top this guy?
Well, being that Magellan is this strong and his fruit is pretty unique overall, he lacks usefulness by sitting on the toilet all day, and some of the people above him are even more unique and strong, and definitely more useful. Just wait and see, guys. But with that being said, Magellan crashes in at number 7. Number 6. The Ope no Mi, otherwise known as the Op fruit. This devil fruit was consumed by Trafalgar D. Waterlaw. The Op fruit allows the user to create a spherical territory around him, seen as a light blue aura, which is known as Room. This room gives him the power to manipulate anything within the territory, such as people, cannonballs, and ships, among many other things. in what is described as a surgical manner. While within the room, he is capable of telekinesis, pseudo-teleportation, and even telepathy. Through this ability, Law can dismember people from a distance without harming them, lift, move, or displace objects of any size, and switch people's hearts, which is known to effectively switch minds as well. He is also able to switch himself with other objects inside this room at will, similar to teleportation. The user can also release high voltage shocks to create energy blades that can destroy internal organs, so long as room is active and the target is inside. He can also attach separate parts in any manner he sees fit, such as sticking someone's severed head to a barrel. People separated by this ability are not killed like you think they would be and can still feel their separated parts. Regardless of the distance, separated parts can be reassembled back to normal. However, while separated, they can be temporarily assembled in mixed up ways or attached onto other surfaces, including someone or something else's body within his room. Law can cut cleanly through flesh and bone without actually hurting the victim. However, when the cutting power is used on a non-living object, the effect will result as a normal cut. The effect remains even after Law disengages the room. Internal organs removed by this ability will also become vulnerable and unprotected. The greatest power of this fruit is the ability to grant another person eternal youth, though performing this surgery comes at the cost of the current fruit user's life. A drawback to the fruit is that the user can only use its powers within a specific spherical area. So if the target moves outside the area, they are thereby unaffected by its powers. Now, though Law can control everything within a particular area, if he loses his concentration on an opponent, they can still move freely. A major weakness of this fruit is that the usage of the fruit's abilities depletes the user's stamina, and overusage and exerting to the range limit can even result in shortening of the lifespan. The usage of the internal youth operation in particular will cost the user his or her life. In regards to the fruit's medical applications, a good deal of medical knowledge is required to use the Op-Op fruit to its fullest extent. Now, to me, Law has one of the most unique and useful devil fruits out there, and on top of that, it is a very strong ability. He can basically use his room to operate on an object in any way he sees fit. Whether he wants to put a penis on your forehead or turn you into a walking barrel, he's your guy. His fruit can also switch personalities, allow teleportation, telepathy, and he can use it to create powerful weapons like his gamma knife to destroy internal organs. And on top of all this, he has one of the most amazing abilities. Even if it costs him his own life, he can perform internal youth on someone, which is basically immortality. The one drawback of this fruit is his limited space for his room. Even if this limit is still much larger than you'd think, basically with Law, his mind is his limit within his room. And that is one of the coolest abilities out there. The reason I placed him above all the rest is simply because of how unique this fruit is and how useful it can be in almost all situations. Say Magellan is coming at you with his Venom demon. I'm sure Law could just slice him in half with his room and simply transport him away. On top of this, he was capable of slicing an entire mountain and a very skilled hockey user in half. Though because Law has a pretty vulnerable weakness and weakened stamina because of his ability, I can only place him so high. Though I'd like to think that one day he will be strong and skilled enough to take on any of these other Paramecia users with ease. But until then, Law shambles in at number 6. Number 5.5. The Mero-mero no Mi, otherwise known as the Love fruit. This devil fruit was consumed by Boa Hancock. Now I'm going to quickly summarize this fruit because it's just a quick addition to the list. I really wanted to add her somewhere because of her ability, but I just couldn't bring myself to remove anyone from the list. So just consider this a bonus. The Mero-mero no Mi basically allows the user the power to manipulate lust. Anyone who lusts for the user in any way will be turned into stone immediately, if the user wants them to be turned, of course. If this doesn't work, she can simply use her powers to turn them to stone by contact, though the area affected is only limited to the spot that was struck. Now, the reason I can't place this fruit higher or lower is because of how circumstantial it is. What I mean by that is, what if the opponent is not affected by lust? They will not be turned into stone. Also, there are other ways around this lust, such as inflicting pain to themselves. Though Boa Hancock is supposed to be the most beautiful woman in the world, so those who do not lust for her, or lust to be her, are very few and far between. But the thought of her ability failing is enough to place her lower on the list than she could be. Another thing is she can also fire her lust as a projectile, so she's got range for her attacks too. And there's really not much of a defense aspect. In the end, she would place above all the previous because I feel they would all lust for her somehow. The only ones I'm iffy about are maybe Robin and Law, though I'm sure they would still be affected in the end. Because Hancock's ability cannot be used on everyone, she is stuck at 5.5, but still her ability is very unique, and the fact that she of all people possesses it is as lucky as can be. And in most situations, it can be very useful, and with her other hockey abilities, she is not a force to be disregarded. But now we move on to the real number 5. Number 5. The Buki Buki no Mi, otherwise known as the Arms fruit. This devil fruit was consumed by Baby 5. This fruit gives the user the ability to change their body into any kind of weapon. The user can either transform small body parts of their body like the fingers, hands, or arms, or a larger body section such as their entire torso or even their whole body into a weapon. While transformed into a weapon, the user cannot take any damage inflicted as a result of the weapon's impact, such as detonating while in the state of an explosive. If the user's body is broken apart as a result of the weapon's intended effects, the pieces can easily reform into the user's full body undamaged. Sort of like a Logia. However, this Logia-like regeneration does not apply to the user's human form, even if the user is partially transformed, although transforming into self-detonating weapons such as missiles and bombs does not harm the user. The user remains vulnerable to the generated weapons if they are aimed at their self, voluntarily or otherwise. So this fruit is pretty straightforward. Baby 5 can become any weapon. Period. No exceptions. She can become sharp objects like swords or any firearm or explosive.
Well, too spooky. Can she become that dildo bat from Saints Row?
No. Well, actually, probably. Now you're probably thinking I'm a complete idiot for placing her so high on this list. But just think of it this way, guys. She can turn into any weapon. Anything. Which means she could turn into a nuclear bomb. Now, I don't care what your Devil Fruit ability is. There is no possible way you are going to survive a nuclear bomb. For instance, 200,000 people were killed from the bombings in World War II. Now, I know other Devil Fruit users aren't your average civilian, but let's be real. There are very few abilities that could survive this attack, and very few who could counter it in any way. Now, Baby 5 is this high because of her deadly capabilities, plus the ability to transform into any weapon is pretty awesome ability to begin with. Other than that, she carries no special characteristics, so because of this, I can only place her so high on the list. So Baby 5 falls in at number 5. Ironically, because, you know, Baby 5, number 5, never mind. Number 4, the Ito Ito no Mi, otherwise known as the String Fruit. This devil fruit was consumed by Don Quixote do Flamengo. The user has the power to generate and control white, extremely thin, razor-sharp strings attachable to seemingly any surface, including clouds, from seemingly any part of their own body, including their insides, though mostly seen protruding from the palms and fingertips for many diverse purposes, such as manipulating people's movements in a way reminiscent of how puppeteers control their puppets, by connecting the strings to their spines, swiping the strings to slice through things like body parts and weapons, similar to piano wire or molecular wire, attaching them to clouds for aerial transportation, and creating masses of bundled up compressed strings for various constructs, such as ropes usable as whips, bullets, clones, and a humongous cage-like force field, or a massive spiderweb defense. Generally, it is unknown if there is a limit to the length and quantity of the strings produced. He can also shoot the strings as bullets. Apart from that, the strings can be imbued with Haki, increasing their strength and allowing them to bypass Devil Fruit-based defenses, such as Smoker's Mogu Mogu no Mi's intangibility. The Devil Fruit is versatile, such as its ability to perform an emergency stitching of his internal organs after getting them heavily injured by Trafalgar D. Waterlaw's Gamma Knife that we talked about earlier, thus rescuing himself from an eventual death. The strings possess such enormous durability and strength that very few things and people can cut, tear, or otherwise damage them. Not even multiple meteors coming crashing down one after the next damaged the strings that formed the bars of the birdcage in the slightest, not even burning them. Instead, being carved up. However, it is possible to overpower the bodily control of the strings. At the same time, the strings' thinness makes it almost impossible to see them with the unaided eye, making it extremely difficult to avoid their path. Most people who do not know of Doflamingo's power become completely unaware of how their bodies are moving against their will. The sharpness of the Ito Ito no Mi's strings is such that Doflamingo can cut through the flesh and bone of a giant as huge as Little Oars Jr. Also, firearms, the back of Bobby Funk, and reinforced concrete with ease, all seemingly without being enhanced with Haki. Additionally, if awoken, the Ito Ito no Mi's power also allows the consumer to transmute parts of the surrounding area, like the ground and buildings, into strings as well, something which makes it no longer resemble the powers of a mere Paramecia. One of his ability's weaknesses is that the user cannot travel mid-air when there are no clouds in the sky. Also, the strings seem to be incapable of cutting sea stone. Haki also helps others with preventing the strings to cut them. The strings will disappear into thin air if the user loses consciousness. So, Doflamingo is pretty much a walking monster with his Devil Fruit. The strings are virtually indestructible. Because of that, they are the perfect offensive and defensive ability. So to sum up why Doflamingo is number 4 would be very difficult. Basically, his strength and unique abilities are unmatched to the point where they can be useful in almost every situation. He can create an impenetrable cage that slowly kills everyone and destroys everything trapped inside. He can use these strings for fast transportation across the world as long as clouds are present. He can control people like a human puppet and even create his own string clone to control. He can use his strings for a close range attack or shoot string bullets for a long range attack. He can also use his strings to heal his internal organs. And there's just so much more. I could keep going on and on about it, but I think you guys pretty much understand. But on top of all this, Doflamingo is the only known Paramecia user to have awakened their Devil Fruit. This allows him to transform any surroundings near him into huge bundles of white string, basically making the environment string along with his normal attacks, something that is unmatched by other Paramecia users. Overall, Doflamingo is one of the most powerful and versatile Devil Fruit users in all of One Piece, and because of that, he jumps in at number 4. Number 3. Fujitora's unnamed Paramecia Devil Fruit. This fruit grants the user the ability to manipulate gravity around a chosen location at will by sending gravitational forces. This was first used to create a gravitational force of such intensity that it caused the swindlers to be pressed heavily against the floor, which caved in to create a gigantic hole as a result. Later, he used immense amounts of gravity to accomplish other feats, such as summoning a meteor to fall from the sky. After the battle against Law, with Doflamingo, he used his power to increase gravity on one point to pin Law to the ground and immobilize him. However, it seems that his gravity powers can be disrupted by attacking Fujitora himself. Fujitora can also reverse gravity to create a circular barrier around him which repels attacks. As a testament of his power, he stated that the meteor he brought down was merely to test his strength. This was proven further much later when he was shown capable of levitating all of the rubble on the entire island of Dressrosa. He is also able to use his powers to levitate and move materials such as a battleship or a rock, and use the rock as a platform to stand on to levitate. And he can affect both living and inanimate objects. Now, since Fujitora's Devil Fruit is unnamed, we do not know a whole lot about it. However, we know enough to where we can easily clarify that this is one of the most powerful Devil Fruits of all time. On top of power, it is also extremely useful, and it even has great defensive capabilities. In terms of defense, he can use this reverse gravity barrier to repel almost all attacks from what we've seen. In terms of how powerful, he can use these gravitational forces on any location or objects, meaning nothing is safe from him. But even though all of this is already impressive enough to make the list, Fujitora can do something that almost knocks my socks off. He can summon a meteorite from the sky! A fucking meteorite! Even though it was a smaller one that Doflamingo could still defend himself from. Just picture this, alright? Say one day Fujitora is just done with life.
Well, I'ma call it a day.
Then he just uses all his strength to get the biggest fucking meteorite he possibly can and just destroy the world in one foul swoop. This man has the power to destroy the world, and because of that, he floats in at number 3. But he's not the only person capable of destroying the world. Number 2. The Gura no Mi, otherwise known as the Tremor-tremor fruit. This devil fruit was consumed by Whitebeard, and later by Blackbeard, somehow. The major strength granted by this fruit is its user's ability to generate massive vibrations, or shockwaves, which can travel through virtually any medium, including the ground, the seafloor, and even the air. Because of this, Whitebeard holds the power to destroy the world. And even if someone retreated to the ends of the ocean, there would be no safe place left in the world for them to go when faced with the power of the Gura no Mi. The user of this fruit can devastate an entire island with ease. However, this devil fruit's powers are noted to be a hazard to both friend and foe alike, as observed by both the Whitebeard and Blackbeard pirates. This primarily stems from how even though the user seems to be able to control both the magnitude or the shockwave and its point of impact, the quakes produced by these shockwaves are indiscriminate in their effects, and because of this, allies of the user must be prepared for the impacts unless they want to become unintended victims of them. This devil fruit has no apparent weaknesses aside from the standard devil fruit weaknesses. However, the 3 admirals managed to stop Whitebeard's shockwaves from hitting Marineford's execution platform by combining their haki. Also, the siege wall that Sengoku planted was composed of a material that Whitebeard's shockwaves could not shatter. Additionally, as mentioned previously, due to the fact that Whitebeard's attacks were indiscriminate in who they could hit, his allies and crewmates had to fight a certain distance away from him, giving enemies far more room in attacking him. Whitebeard has the ability to either concentrate these vibrations into a small, confined ball, or to let them run freely, with some sort of control on the direction, of course. See, like Fujitora, this fruit has the ability to destroy the world. However, we already know for a fact this is possible, while Fujitora's is still up for debate. On top of this fruit has no weaknesses aside from the normal stuff, although it is hard to fight side by side with. Though this fruit is not as unique or useful other than to destroy things, though it is one of the strongest, if not the strongest on this list. So you must be wondering, what devil fruit could possibly top Whitebeard's? Well, I'ma tell ya. Number 1. The Nico no Mi, otherwise known as the Paw-paw fruit. This devil fruit was consumed by Bartholomew Kuma. The first and foremost strength of this fruit is that the user is able to push virtually anything they touch into paw-shaped bubbles and send it flying at an extremely high speed. This includes both tangible materials such as people and objects, and intangible materials such as air, and the sensation of physical pain. This power also offers the user an incredible defense in battle, allowing them to deflect any attack. They are also able to use their abilities to perform offensive maneuvers, such as repelling the very air around them at very high speeds. These attacks are so powerful that they can leave paw-shaped imprints in rock. One misconception about the powers of this fruit is that it gives the user the ability to teleport at will. However, this is incorrect. Rather than teleport, Kuma uses the incredible speed of his devil fruit's power to propel himself across certain distances, the speed of which is near instantaneous, though he has not been actually seen pushing himself to another location. While the user is able to deflect attacks, they can only do this by using their bare hands. So if the user's hands are otherwise occupied, being caught off guard for instance, they will receive damage from an attack that could have been otherwise averted. In Kuma's case, however, this weakness is compensated by his transformation into a cyborg with stronger than steel armoring. The fruit's bestowed powers, as used by Kuma, have been seen for a variety of uses. The majority of them are attacks that, when executed, leave a paw pad imprint resembling the pads on his palms. Objects repelled by Kuma using the Devil Fruit's powers travel at incredible speeds. People repelled by Kuma are sent flying through the air for 3 days and 3 nights inside a paw-shaped bubble that protects them from any and all obstacles in their path until they arrive at the location designated by Kuma. Upon their arrival, the bubble will vanish and the victim will land in the middle of a large paw print, completely unharmed. Kuma is also able to use his powers to push out the pain and fatigue from the body of another person. These sensations are then manifested into a red bubble resembling a paw. With this technique, the pain the original person suffered can be transferred to another person through direct physical contact with the bubble. This transfer leaves the recipient in antagonizing pain, and the other person feeling healthy and energized, though their wounds remain unhealed. Now, this fruit has everything I look for in a devil fruit. It can deflect any attack for defense. It has amazing offensive capabilities like using air itself to be compressed and pushed into an enemy, and this includes any object. On top of this, it has so many unique capabilities like being able to remove someone's physical pain. Though this doesn't heal their wounds, it is still such a unique ability. On top of this, Kuma can travel anywhere at insane speeds and send anyone else anywhere, all while being sent the victim remains in a bubble unharmed. As far as we know, this bubble is indestructible as well. Now, I feel Kuma has all the abilities he will ever need to go up against pretty much anybody on the list. And even if he can't defeat them, he will always have a very close fighting chance. And overall, he has one of the most unique and original abilities out there. On top of being very strong and even a cyborg to top it off. Plus, in close range and long range combat, there is no escape whatsoever. In fact, the only way you're escaping is through transportation if Kuma wills it. But with all that in mind, Kuma is our number 1. But there you have it, everybody, the top 10 Paramecia Devil Fruits in One Piece. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video today, and hopefully you agreed with the list, or at least understood some of it. Let me know what your top 10 would be in the comments below, and I'm sorry again to those who didn't make it on the list. It was a very hard decision for all of them. And really quickly, I would just like to give a big shout out to my friend, ROcata. Not only is he one of the most talented artists of all time, he is one of the most talented artists that I've ever had the pleasure of coming in contact with. And his channel specializes in speed drawings of all kinds, such as things like I Hate Everything and All Might from My Hero Academia. And on top of that, he also has some amazing original creations. And he recently just drew me this absolutely stunning original character, and I cannot thank him enough for this. It is just absolutely beautiful. And if you're wondering,
Well, too spooky. How can I get my hands on an original character?
well, look no further, because my buddy ROcata over here can draw you your own original character at a very negotiable price. However, if you're really looking for some numbers, I got them for you too. So for sketchings, it's about $5 per character with an additional $3 per extra character, and if you would like a background, that's another $8. If you would like it inked, it would be $10 per character, $5 per extra character, and $12 to add a background. And if you would like your character to be colored, it is $20 per character, $10 per extra character, and $30 extra to add a background. Now honestly, I think his work speaks for itself, and I think this is a very reasonable price. So if you want your own original character, you should go contact him immediately to start getting some prices down. And if you just like speed drawings in general, you should definitely go check out his channel. Either way, you guys should go check his channel out right now and show him all the love that you possibly can. Right now, he is at 33 subscribers. And if you could, it would be amazing if we could get him to at least 100 subscribers. But by all means, do not stop there. I would really appreciate it if you guys would check him out, but I know that he would appreciate it even more. So thank you guys in advance, and make sure to go check him out. And once again, Mr. ROcata, I cannot thank you enough for this beautiful masterpiece. Again, make sure to leave a like if you haven't already. Once we hit 4,000 likes, the top 10 worst Devil Fruit users will be coming. So like it up and be on the lookout. Also, make sure to subscribe because if you do, there is a 10% chance one of the fruits you have in your kitchen or that apple in your hand will become a Paramecia devil fruit. So make sure to hit that subscribe button right now. Now if you guys can't get enough too spooky content, make sure to click here for the previous top 10, the top 10 Zoan devil fruits. And if that's just not doing it for you, well why don't you click here for 10 facts about Nico Robin. Anyways guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.